So, as you know, we have been living through an unprecedented season. The COVID-19 pandemic changed everything. It's changed so much of our lives. And if you can remember this far back, it was Monday, the 23rd of March, when Boris Johnson took our country into lockdown, which is just under 15 weeks ago. As a result, for us at the church, our doors had to be shut, and we had to shift how we operated as church online, or as much as we could to get online as possible. And we all felt the pain of that. I certainly felt the pain of it. The fact that we couldn't be together, that we couldn't have church as we would normally desire, was incredibly painful. We miss people. I miss people. I trying to learn for me how to pastor a church digitally rather than in physical was a whole new world. And that's just church life, no matter what else has been going on in everyone else's lives, and illness and jobs and employment and all of those other challenges that we've all had. Now, as you know, things are starting to ease and restrictions are starting to be lifted. But as we also all know, it was much easier to shut things down than it is to open things back up safely. There are challenges at every point along the way with this. I've heard from various different sources, things in the national press, things from personal comments made to me about the church should be doing this, or it should be doing that, or it shouldn't be doing this, and it shouldn't be doing that. And there have been a whole debate and an argument around whether we're operating on faith or on fear, or whether we should be breaking the rules or whether we should be sticking to the rules, all sorts of different questions. But the driving factor for us as a church has always been and will always be love. Love your neighbour. So the reason we shut our buildings, other than the fact that we were legally told to, was because we were loving the vulnerable amongst us. We were caring for those who were in difficult positions. We didn't want to spread the virus any further. We wanted to look after our NHS, and we wanted to keep people safe. So our doors have been shut, but the church has never been closed. The church is alive and it is active, and it has been the whole way through this season. We've been told too many times that you don't go to church, we are the church. Church isn't simply a Sunday service that you attend. We have a vision, as you all well know, to be an authentic community which is Christ-centered, that plays its part in transforming the city and beyond. We don't just attend a service. Rick Warren, the founding pastor of Saddleback Church in America, says this: "Our buildings have been closed, but the church is not a building. We are a living, breathing body. The church is a family, not a fortress. We are a people, not a place. We are an army of servants, not an event of attenders. You have been taught many times that a crowd is not a church, and that church is so much more than a weekend service. The church operates 160 hours of the week." So the question, therefore, is what have we been doing at Works? What have we done in response to the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, the first thing, or some of the things that we've done, should I say, is that we try to connect people into the Derby COVID Response Hub. The council wanted volunteers to help with people to get medicines for people, take people to hospitals, look after food banks and all sorts of stuff. And we encouraged people from within our church to go and connect in with that. And some of you have, and we are so, so grateful. The Derby COVID Response Hub coordinated all of the food banks across the city and pulled them together into a coordinated approach. We have been supporting Derby City Mission, who have been playing their part in that as one of the food banks that have been operating, and some of our community have been serving amongst the food banks in our city. We were then able to set up kind of like an outpost of a food bank. So there was one of the food banks was operating out of the URC church on Ashbourne Road, and we were able to start taking an outpost of that up onto the Mackworth estate. And we have been serving that estate. We flyered the estate, asking people if they are in need of anything. We have served them, we have delivered food packages, and we're building a connection with the schools there. And that for us has come under the banner of the church, the network that we are part of, Holy Trinity Brompton, the church that we planted out of, set up very quickly a kind of coordinated approach called Love Your Neighbour, that is helping to respond to those in need. And if you've been on our website at all, you will have seen a Love Your Neighbour part of our website that's been trying to connect those who are in need with those who can give. And we've tried to support people through that. We've worked with Safe Families and supported some families through this time who have just been in need of an extra bit of support. We've worked with Upbeats community to help support in as best way we can refugees and asylum seekers living in our city. It has been amazing to hear of the response that Upbeats have had as they've been in need of cots and baby clothes and nappies and all sorts of things to support people in our city. And I'm so grateful to everyone who's been part of that and has given. We have financially, as a church, been able to give and to support certain organisations. Upbeats community is one of them, and we've done that locally. We've been also able, as you heard this morning, to support more international relief funds. So we've been supporting Compassion and Tear Fund, and we've been able to give money to them as they've looked at their COVID relief appeals that are working around the world. We've also been able to build a link and a connection with a school in southern Malawi, where we have been able to support that school, where all of their children all of the aid that was going into that school previously was stopped, and there were children there who were not being fed and were hungry. And we've been able to support them and to work alongside the YMCA that's operating in southern Malawi. At this point, you may or may not be aware of kind of the leadership structure within Workworks. And I just wanted to give you a brief, very, very brief understanding of our leadership structures, because all of these decisions, in particular things like finance, have gone through one or two of these layers of different leadership that we have at Works. We have a board of directors. We are not a normal parish church. So if you're from an Anglican background and you would normally think that we'd have a PCC, we don't, because we operate under what's called a bishop's mission order. And so we have a board of trustees because we are a charity and a company. We have 5 directors. Stephen Hance is one of those. He used to be the canon, the dean of the cathedral here in Derby, but he is now, I think his title is head of evangelism and mission for the Church of England, so he has a national role to play. He's one of our directors. Then we have 3 people from within our community: Liz Bateman, Charlotte Wickfield, and Chris Riley, who are part of our directors, and I am a director as well. We take all governance and legal and charitable responsibility for the life of St. Workworks. Then we have a team of overseers who help us to set the kind of spiritual temperature, to be praying for the church, to think about how we can move in different ways and keep us on our vision. And so our overseers, we have 10 overseers: Lexi Orford, Anna Sharp, Anna Mann, and Catherine Johnson. We have Chris Riley, who's also one of our directors, you know, Dave Wasty, Johnny Gledhill, Tony Bateman, and then Andy Bond and myself make up the overseers team. Within that overseers team, we have a few people who take on specific roles. We have 2 church wardens from within our overseers team. So Lexi Orford and Tony Bateman are our church wardens, who I meet with once a fortnight to talk about things that are going on in the life of our church and to get support from them. They are incredible. And we have a treasurer. Chris Riley is our treasurer, which is why he is an overseer and on our directors. And then we have a leadership team from within kind of the staff team, and that's made up of the three clergy. So Jenny Newman, Andy Bond, myself, and then obviously Anna as one of the leaders of the church, and Emma Mallard as our operations manager. So all the decisions that we would have made around finance and where we were supporting people and how we're connecting with people would all have been gone through at least one iteration of that leadership structure. So we've been trying to love our neighbours, to care for those who have been struggling through this season in whatever way. But we've also, if you go back to the commandment from Jesus in Matthew 22, he says, love your neighbours as yourself. And so we've been having to wonder and think about how we have done our pastoral care and support and love one another at Werbs. And so we took our Werbs groups online, as you know, and we now have almost 200 people in Werbs groups across 23 different Werbs groups. One of those groups, really excitingly, is made up of asylum seekers and refugees, and it's been brilliant to be able to include them in that community. We've also been running our students group that has continued longer than university term would have done over online process, and we've had 4 youth Werbs groups running alongside this all as well. We, the church, you, me, all of us, have supported, loved, cared for each other. We've grieved together, we've comforted one another, and we have been there for each other through the medium of those Werbs groups and the relationships that we have established. We, the church, not the church leadership, but all of us together have done that. And I am so grateful for everyone who has played their part in that. The harder part of the pastoral care piece in the life of St Werburgh's is for those who haven't been in a Werbs group. And obviously, if we've got 200 people plus in the groups, we've probably still got about another 200 people who aren't in a Werbs group. And so we've tried to stay in touch, in connection with those people outside of those groups. That has been hard, but it has not been impossible. And so we've been trying to make sure we are staying in touch as a leadership team with some of those people. Then, of course, we've gone online, as you will all know. And so we moved all of our Sunday service content online, and we have been operating on a Sunday morning and on Sunday evening, and recently also at 4:30 for our youth. So we've had kids content, and I think probably the thing I've heard the most from in terms of numbers of comments has been how amazing Amy has done at running our kids church on a Sunday morning, and she has absolutely smashed it and done a brilliant job. But we've had our kids stuff, we've had incredible worship, and our team have worked so hard to be able to record and edit and mix all of the worship that we are able to participate in on a Sunday morning, and that takes hours of work to get all of that up and running. And we've been able to pray together and have sermons and content as well all the way through this season. We set up a 24/7 online prayer room where people were able to book in for an hour and sign up to pray for an hour. And we have seen hundreds of hours of prayer done by the people within Werbs, and that is amazing. We started Alpha Online quite early on into lockdown, and we had a couple of groups start that quickly ended up with just one group. We then started the marriage course online, and we've got 120 couples signed up to the marriage course from across the city, which has just been incredible. The lessons we learned from advertising online meant that we've tried to advertise Alpha online again, and so we've now currently got another Alpha group that has started to meet on a Monday evening. We have learned so much about what it means to be church in those 168 hours of the week. We have learned about how creating content and connection via Instagram and Facebook. We've had devotions and prayer thoughts and prayer meetings, and we've been able to worship together on Instagram once a fortnight, and we've even managed to run a kids holiday club during half term. So all of that online content has been a massive learning curve for all of us. In the midst of all of that, we planted a church. This week, Andy and myself were licensed to St. Francis Mapworth, and so I'm now the priest in charge. Andy is the associate minister, but he is known as the church leader. Andy is going to be leading the church plant with Rach and his team and his family, and it's so exciting an opportunity for us. We came as a church plant, but we've always desired to be a church plant that plants churches, and this is our first one. We're not even 3 years into life at Worms, and we're able to plant a church, and it's so exciting to see what God might do on that estate through that church. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to be sending the team, we're going to be commissioning people to go, and we're going to be saying, right, we're with you, but we're praying you out so that you may go and be part of that church up on Mapworth. Two other very small things. We've gained a youth pastor. Emily joined us during this season, physically still living in London, but able to work with us and to connect with us, and done an amazing job connecting with our youth already and starting our 4:30 youth congregation. And we're also about to send a worship pastor. We're about to send Matt and Sarah as Matt heads towards training for ordination. Another part of the vision of us as a church, that we are training and developing and releasing leaders for others. It is so exciting. And we've also had to start a recruitment process to look to how to replace Matt. So all of those things are going on. The church has not been closed. I can promise you we have been active. But the questions now are, what now? How do we go forward from here? Boris announced this week that churches can reopen from the 4th of July, but there are many details and bits of information that we still don't fully know. Before I jump in and tell us where we're going, I want to just say to all of you, I am longing for us to get back to what we were used to be. I'd love us to be 3 services on a Sunday, full of people, kids running around everywhere, being able to offer refreshments to anybody and everybody. But I'm afraid we're still a very long way off that. Yes, churches can open now for personal prayer and soon for acts of service, acts of worship. And different churches will do different things because they will be in different situations, different styles of service, different numbers of people, different contexts. And so we can't kind of compare ourselves to what other churches are doing around the area. What we do know now is that from the 4th of July, we can have weddings and funerals in church for up to 30 people. What we don't know is how many people we can have in church on a Sunday. We know that the social distancing rule will be 1 metre plus. We do know that we will not be allowed to sing in church at this time. Singing, as we sing, we project particles, which has a chance of us spreading the virus. We also don't really know how we can do kids' work in a COVID-safe way. We also know that we're not allowed to do refreshments. So I'm sorry to say, and I feel the pain of this just as much as everybody else, that it's going to be at least September before we are back in church worshipping together as we would normally do. And if I'm honest, I think September is probably a very optimistic start point. It may be longer than that. We are waiting for a detailed response, detailed advice from the government. There is a Church of England recovery group, and they are currently working with Public Health England to announce to us all the advice on singing and music and how we do communion and how many people are allowed in the buildings. We are expecting that advice some point this week, but we don't know yet. Added into that is we have found taking stuff online has taught us so much. We have found new people who have connected with us in all sorts of different ways through our online content. You may be here this evening because of that, and we're so excited that you are with us and are joining our journey. It has increased our reach, and so why would we ever take a step back from that? Why would we stop connecting with more people around our city by trying to do something back in church that isn't quite as good as we would want it to be? We, as an organisation, have had to pivot from being an organisation that always met in the physical to now being an organisation that has a digital presence first and foremost, but then we'll have some physical spaces available. So I want to say now, one of the things I want to commit to is that we will always stay online. We want to continue to be in that digital space because that's where our people are. But we do long to be back physically together, worshipping together in a building. And so I think we have three main priorities for the use of our building going forward. The first one is prayer. We know that churches can be open for prayer from now, but what we will be doing is from Monday the 6th of July, we will be opening Monday to Thursday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for a walk-through prayer space, is what we're calling it. We're going to set it up as you would with all sorts of creative ideas within it, like we would normally do for a 24/7 prayer space. But obviously it's not going to be open 24/7, but it will be open and you'll be able to walk through one door at church, sanitize your hands, walk through about 4, 5, maybe 6 different kind of prayer spaces that will help you to pray and to engage with God, and then to walk out another one of the other doors. So we'll be able to do that in a COVID safe way, but to encourage us to pray. And so if you're longing to get back in the building and to engage with God in that way, we will be able to do that from Monday the 6th of July. Our second priority is to serve the refugees and the asylum seekers in our city. Our friends who currently are living in the initial accommodation have been stuck there. They've pretty much had nowhere to go and they've had to live there altogether. We want to serve them and to love them. Before lockdown, we were running our Thursday evening group that played table tennis and table football and board games and got to know people and had refreshments. We want to do a similar thing to that, or as much as we can of those type of things, as soon as possible. Whether that will be limited in numbers and whether we have to run that over a number of different nights during the week, we want to really make sure we serve and care for our friends at the initial accommodation. So that's our second priority. The third priority is for us to make connection. And so at some point, again, depending on the advice that comes out from the government and the Church of England Recovery Group, we will hope to see whether we can have small groups meeting in church for connection, whether it's a couple of Words groups that might meet on a Wednesday night, potentially socially distanced from each other because the building is big enough, but at least they can be in the physical and they can meet and they can see one another. We may have prayer meetings. Again, there may be kind of 20 to 30 people that might be able to gather together in a church building to pray. We are considering to show our online content on a Sunday morning that you can normally watch in your pajamas in your front room, that we might show that in church on a Sunday morning at 10:30. So if you would like to come and be part of that together, you want to connect with other people and be around one another, you might be able to gather together to watch on the screen, and then at least you can then be together and connect with one another, and then leave afterwards. These are just ideas at this point, and we're waiting for the government advice to tell us whether we can or cannot do them, but these are the things that we are pondering in our head. The other way that we can serve is to make connection, the other idea to help us connect with one another is to serve. We are longing to try and get the church back into some kind of shape and order. We need to clean. We need to tidy. We certainly need to do some gardening. The land around the church is massively overgrown and just disgusting, really, and it needs a great big tidy up. And so if you want to just come and be with people, pull out some weeds, run a duster around the building, clean some toilets, we'd love you to be involved in that. We've sent out an email that you received this Zoom link on that tells you about that. And if you're interested, please get in touch with Nigel, and we'd love to be to work that through. One of the other things that we might do is a bit of a clothes bank. We're waiting. We've been talking to some people at St Alkmund's who've got some clothing being delivered. We may be needed to respond to that. So some people in our city who are in need of clothes, that we might be able to care for them at this time. And again, those details are just being worked out, but we're looking to do that. So you can come and serve, but by serving, you can be in the building and you can be connecting with one another in the physical together. We are the church. And so I want to encourage you, as these restrictions ease and as things change over the coming months, to think how we might do this together. Can your Werbs group meet in your garden? Could you meet in the park? Are you able to go for socially distanced walks with friends so that you can continue to connect and to engage with them? I want you to encourage you to take the initiative. Pick up a phone, call someone. Don't wait for other people. Be the church. Be the person that you would want other people to be to you. We hope that over the coming summer months, we will be able to have picnics in the park. Wouldn't it be amazing if we can gather at the big tree in Darley Abbey and be together and kind of socially distanced, but there, and we can see and we can connect with one another. Maybe even do church in the park, whether or not we'll be able to sing outdoors, I don't know, or do something. All these ideas are there and they're buzzing around our heads, but we are waiting for further instruction. The other thing I want to encourage us all is to reimagine the future. We're in this sermon series at the moment thinking about rebuilding, and let's be honest, the world has changed. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way in which we operate, and we need to think things through and be at the forefront of leading our culture and our society in how we can re-engage. There's so many things to think through, whether it's race, equality, justice, global warming. All these issues are huge, and we have the opportunity to be at the forefront of reimagining what life can look like. In the UK, we know that there are about 1.5 million people who are brought to food poverty by the COVID lockdown. The government are predicting 4 main areas of problems as restrictions ease and as we start to come out of this. Food poverty is the first. A need for kind of financial advice and help for those who have gone into debt or have been made redundant. Employment opportunities for people to get back into employment, and mental health. These are going to be almost like a tidal wave of issues that we as a society are going to be having to face in the next months, years, probably. And so as a church, we need to work out what it means for us to continue to love our neighbour and to help them with those, to help our society, our friends, our neighbours through this season. But it's not just in the UK. This is a worldwide pandemic. And as we heard this morning, we think there are 130 million people being brought to the brink of starvation because of the COVID-19 pandemic. How can we play our part to change that, to be good news, to love the people around us? We have done so much in these few months, and I am so grateful to all of you for every part that you have played in the midst of that. But I'm most grateful to God that He has enabled us, He's allowed us, He's breathed His Holy Spirit into us to give us life, He's strengthened us and equipped us and encouraged us. all that he has made possible through this. But we can't stay here. This is not a time for us to kind of pat ourselves on the back and go, well done, aren't we brilliant? There is so much more to do as we respond to the need around us, because we want to build an authentic community which is Christ-centered, that plays its part in transforming the city and beyond. We are that church, and I want to encourage us all to continue to play our part in that.